Our meeting to order. I'd like to mention that Nebraska Open Meetings Act legislates the methods by which public meetings are conducted. Information pertaining to this act is posted in the boardroom. Sheila, can we have a roll call?
Matthew Peterson.
Present.
Emily Garrett.
Present.
Joanne Landry.
Present.
Cindy O'Connor.
Present.
Skip Ballton.
Present.
Andrew Blakey.
Present.
Remind everybody, the purpose of the North Platte Public School District is to prepare all students to be productive, responsible citizens in a safe, caring, and supportive learning environment. Our direction is to prepare every student for success through high-quality educational programs delivered by highly effective educators who use innovative, research-based strategies in a safe, supportive environment in collaboration with family, businesses, and community members. Could we get a motion for approval of the publication of the committee of the whole meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the publication of the December 19th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting. A second.
Roll call.
Emily Garrett.
Aye.
Joanne Landry.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Skip Ballton.
Aye.
Andrew Blakey.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
And could we get a motion on the agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for the December 19th, 2024 Committee of the Whole meeting.
Second.
Roll call.
Joanne Landry.
Aye.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Skip Ballton.
Aye.
Andrew Blakey.
Aye.
Matthew Peterson.
Aye.
Emily Garrett.
And this will pass. We'll turn to the public allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so our first item of discussion is board engagement. So I would like to just open the floor to board members who may have done school visits or gone to meetings that they'd like to report on. Those types of things. Anything positive to share?
Oh, yeah. Since we did not have a meeting of this type in November, I have several. I'll try to keep them short. On November 5th and December 5th, I saw the high school production of Antigone, which is a dramatic play. It's a classic Greek drama, but the high school, this was their contest play. Very well done. They did it in modern dress, which I found really interesting. Very well done. They made it to state where they finished 4th in Class A last week. So that was a major accomplishment. On November 11th, I visited Eisenhower Elementary. I was given a tour by their student ambassadors, which is kind of neat, you know, have two kids take you around, 5th graders, and you ask them questions. And when they just start out asking them, they're real kind of leery, but then I kept asking questions. So then they relaxed a little more. Saw a lot of great things going on in every classroom. They have a wall where they put a perfect attendance for students for the quarter, and then they'll have it for the semester. And I thought that was pretty good. And I was amazed how many students were actually on that wall or not missing any in the first quarter. And in the classrooms, all the teachers were involved. Also on the wall, they had a good call home where a student did something and the teacher had him call home. So I had a picture of the student smiling there with holding up the certificate that said good call home, which I thought again was real positive. Very clean building, Stuart, as usual. And November 20th and 22nd, I attended the state convention. The first thing I attended was our legislative committee, but I reported on that at our November meeting. I went to a lot of good sessions. I'm just going to tell you the ones I went to. I'm not going to, and if you want to know a lot of information on them, I'll talk to you about it, but I don't want to eat up time. I went one on conducting board meetings, one on the Opens Meeting Act. I went on one on the NSA sports and activities. This one I will explain a little. They are looking at trying to classify schools not by number of students, but what type of student you have. This is more done by Class A people. And it's an involved thing that they're working on. They started last year, it was started by activities directors from across the state, from Scottsbluff all the way to Omaha. And they are talking about how to equalize some of the things. So they don't have an answer yet, but they're going around the state and they were explaining what they are looking at. But the main part is they're looking at not so much if you only have X amount of numbers, but how do you can you work with some of these schools that have, 2,500 kids in them or whatever it is, and you barely make eight. And it was real interesting. I'm real interested to see how that turns out. It'll probably be a 2 to 3 year process. I went one on KSB, the use of AI and apps by students, and some of the things students are doing using AI that isn't really good. And hot topics issues by KSB about all the things that are going on. They did say one thing about the apps. They get calls weekly by schools about stuff that's going on with the use of kids using apps, AI in their apps, and sending pictures. Weekly, they get them now. On December 9th, I visited Jefferson. I like the new main entrance. The office area is really nice. Toured the school, all the classrooms were busy, students and teachers were engaged. They were having a Christmas door decorating party. And Dr. Escherman and Mrs. Fleck were going to be the judges. So I assume that probably went on this week. Dr. Escherman and she showed me some of the changes she had done in the building since she took over. And they were really good, very clean again, Stuart. And she also told me about the Jefferson students. I don't know if you saw it in either the bulletin or the Telegraph, the Jefferson students that volunteered to lay wreaths at Fort McPherson. She told me about that and how the kids were really interested in that, and that was good. On December 17th, I attended the 8th grade vocal band orchestra concert. Mr. Spatansky was there at the back at the high school. It's really good to see how these kids have improved since 6th grade, especially in band and orchestra. And they ended the concert with all 3 groups out there doing Silent Night. The orchestra, the band, and the vocal part. And then at the end, the vocal did Silent Night with sign language. It was really neat ending. And thanks to Mrs. Weatherly, Mr. Baxter, and Mr. Stoner for all the work that they do. And I also have attended numerous 8th grade girl basketball games. I'm actually missing the last one, so it's Mr. Spatansky tonight, because their last one is going on right now at Adams. And a big thank you to Mr. Barry and Mrs. Hammond. But one of the things, they make sure all the girls play. All of them play. They play a decent amount. Some have a lot of talent, some don't have much talent, but they just keep giving the girls positive things all throughout the game. And I just think that's great. That was 2 months worth there.
All right, Angela, anything to share?
No.
Cindy.
I attended the state school board and I went to quite a few sessions. I'm amazed how many sessions that they have at the school board. I went to the legislative outlook, building and growing our future, student voices, navigating student policies and social media of the board, Title IX improvements. I really enjoyed the student voices. They had 6 students from 5 different schools, and they were so engaged, and it was so positive, the things they were saying. I was very interested because they were talking about things they felt that the schools needed to do. And I did talk to our committee about that. And they were talking about the taxes, how they don't know how to fill out a W-4 or any of that when they graduate and start a job. And they said that they wished in school that they would have a class to teach them this, which I thought was very interesting. Because I know when I was a bookkeeper and you would have the new teachers come in, they didn't have a clue how to fill out any of that, and they would want to go home and talk to their parents. So,
All right.
Got a couple things. I visited Lake School with Stuart, and Miss Nebraska was there while we were visiting, which was kind of cool to see. Is it fourth and fifth graders?
Believe it
Right,
was.
that got to
Yeah.
go in.
Yeah.
She was on roller skates, and so I think they were very excited, very engaged. And I think that that was funded through the foundation.
I
Is that
believe
Yes.
one of the-
correct.
Okay, so that was cool to actually get to witness like one of those things in action, because I don't think that that's very often, we get to hear about them a lot, but to just see, you know, their engagement and their excitement about that was great. I was also impressed, kind of piggybacking on what Skip has shared about attendance. We talked a little bit, and they've got a board up front, and have some incentives going on there at Lake, and their attendance was really impressive, like the number of students that had perfect attendance. I was kind of blown away by it at this point. So that was really cool to see that that's something that's priority, because we all know that that's important. And then similarly, I had made a mental note just about the building, you know, I think there are older parts of that building, and even that, like the upkeep, the cleanliness, like I think probably as board members, we all hear complaints about a lot of things, founded or unfounded, and personal opinions and facts, but I have truly never heard somebody complain about our buildings, which is pretty remarkable. So I think, you know, it was just a really good picture of how we kind of make the best of what we have of buildings in the district, and we've prioritized upkeep, and obviously our maintenance and custodial staff is doing a great job. So then I attended the new member training that NASB put on here in North Platte with our incoming board member Justin, and Joanne also attended. There was some good conversation there. A lot of it was just kind of a review of kind of what to expect coming onto the board. But it was nice to be able to be there as a current board member and kind of help facilitate onboarding of new board members. I think that's been a topic of conversation, and how it's just a lot to take in. And so I think as a board, that's been something we've kind of talked about in the past, of helping people to make that transition and know what to expect. And so they shared a lot of things that I felt were really helpful with that context. Some of the conversations that I found interesting were they talked a lot about like opportunities to better communicate with our community and engage our stakeholders, which I think was definitely interesting to hear some of the ideas shared. Utilizing relationships and common goals with other entities in the community. So they kind of shared about how like they had a sample of, you know, a city had a goal and a school had a goal, and how they could kind of pool their resources and minds to work towards that goal together. And so I think that that was something that, you know, thinking about the future of North Platte and North Platte Public Schools got my wheels turning for sure. And then I did find it really interesting. We sat at our table with some individuals from a smaller consolidated school, and it was just really interesting to hear their perspectives about the challenges they face in their community. And like their arguments are about mascots and school colors and just a lot of things that it kind of made me chuckle. And so on the one hand, I guess it's relieving to hear that I mean, in any community, any school, people are gonna find something to complain about. But I'm glad, I guess, that seems like we focus on the important things rather than arguing about mascots and school colors. So I think that's it.
All right, Matt.
Yeah, I have a couple things. Earlier this week, I have a 5-year-old I promised I would come visit. So I made a trip to Buffalo. And that was fun. I hadn't been there in actually inside during the school day in a couple of years. And so Mrs. Sauer gave me a tour. I've said this before, but I can't say enough wonderful things about our preschool program. We're lucky to have a public preschool program that is available for our students. So I did that, and then, last week, I made a visit over to the high school. I saw Mrs. Busher's, wonderful pantry. I had an opportunity to spend some time in there, and then as I was leaving, I told Mr. Spatansky this, it was the middle of one of the lunch periods, and it was the most well-behaved high school lunch I have ever seen. I couldn't believe how calm everyone was. Both Mr. Spatansky and Mr. Byrne were out there, and I appreciate that, because I think when you have that extra layer of oversight, I think that probably helps with some of that, but I was really impressed with that. And then earlier this month, I went to the Eisenhower Elementary Christmas program, and so, were you there? You just forgot to talk about that one.
I was not there, I was judging.
Okay,
I just pointed because, yes, you would have been
and
there.
it was, I was very impressed.
For your niece,
They
yes.
did a great job. I can't remember the teacher's name there, but she did a great job with the group, and they all enjoyed it, and we're doing a great job on stage, so yeah, it's fun month.
Okay, so, I need to figure out where to start. I also visited Jefferson after you did. So, one of the things that Dr. Eshelman shared with me was, kind of what her staff meetings look like. So I thought that was really interesting. I also had picked up this card. This is, with, Nebraska Portraits, that they have yearbooks for the elementary schools this year that kids can purchase. So I asked the secretary there if they are submitting photos and things of activities so that they'll have yearbooks. So I thought that was really interesting. I really liked the fact that not only were the students engaged, but, and I've noticed this on Facebook too, but it seems like they do a lot of things for the teachers as well. There was a contest going on so that there were these little tiny elves, and I mean tiny elves that were printed on paper that were kind of hidden around the building, and teachers were supposed to find them, but the students were really excited about trying to help the teachers find the elves. And so just when they were in the hallways, that was a topic of conversation. So I thought that was really a fun thing. And I also saw their new office space. I think it's great. So there was some really good things going on there. And then yesterday, I was able to go to Cody Elementary, and I went to Miss Fleming's fourth grade class. She wasn't there, but Miss Petska was substituting because they had been working on a section with inventors and inventions. And so she started out just by quizzing the kids on the different inventors and inventions, and hands were just flying up everywhere. I don't know that I didn't see one kid with their hand in the air. So it was really great to see how excited they were about that. And then she explained to me that the kids were all asked to think of a problem and then think of a solution for the problem. And then they created some sort of something to solve that problem. And then they gave a presentation about that. And so I was able to see everything from, there was a homework grading machine. There was a robot crossing guard. There was a watch that would help you to time travel. There was one that I thought was really creative, was a solar powered cell phone. So you didn't have to plug it into the wall. So I thought, so they just had all kinds of really creative ideas, and it was fun to hear the kids give their presentations, and then they were also judged or graded, I should say. They were graded by the teacher on as each student presented, the students that were listening had to write down a question for the student that was presenting, and they also had to give some positive feedback to that student. And so I thought that was really neat. Then I also went to new board member training, as Emily mentioned, and one of the things that I wanted to mention from that, and I'm not sure if you were at that part of it, but there was one part where they talked about how NASB is going to start doing board member modules. Okay. And so they this year it was module 1. Next year they will introduce module 2, which so if there's new board members, then the new board members would start with module 1, and then module 2 is more about budget and some more about superintendent relations, the finance committee. Then in 26, there will be a module 3, and in 27, a module 4. And so it's just really interesting to see how they are kind of evolving their trainings for board members, and Marcia's department, which does all of the board member training, has really grown a lot in personnel. And so I think they're able to do a lot more to help us to learn our roles, which is fantastic, because when you come into this position, you know nothing. So it's great that we have people that that really help us learn how we should be in our roles. I also went to the state school board meeting, and I chose the pre-conference session on AI. And that was really interesting to me. One of the things that I learned that I thought was really fascinating was that they had surveyed some employers, and see if I can get my computer to work here. They said that of those surveyed, 66% want someone that has some AI skills. And 71% said they would hire a less experienced candidate who had AI skills over one who did not have AI skills. So I thought that was really fascinating. So it just kind of cemented how important it is for us to be maybe looking at working with our students with AI. There was one gentleman who talked about his son and how he did a math problem with him, and his son had gotten the answer, and then they went ahead and plugged it into AI, and AI got it wrong. But what he did with his son is he took it and he said, okay, well, let's look through and see, because he didn't immediately point out, that his son was correct and AI was incorrect, but he had him work through the process so that he could see where the mistake was made. And they discovered that there was one part that they had put in the AI, either in the scanning process or something, just couldn't quite figure it out. And so it created its own number to one that made sense to it. And then he also talked about how Snapchat has an AI chatbot. And so he said, even though, younger kids aren't necessarily supposed to be using Snapchat, they are. And so he was talking to his daughter about one of her homework assignments, and she just wasn't quite getting it. And so he said, ask AI to explain it like it would explain it to a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or whatever. And so she did that, and that just kind of opened up a whole new door of understanding for her. And so they really talked about they really talked about helping kids to understand the limitations that there are with AI. And one of the things that they suggested was even if you had students that did that read a book, for example, and they had AI generate some kind of a report or essay, and then have them go through and dissect and say, okay, these are the things that I think AI got right, and these are the things that I don't agree with in the way that it reported it. So that it's, and so I thought that was kind of an interesting way to use it. And then, one of the people that presented to us was, someone from UNK, and Chelsea Fusner, who used to work for our district. She's part of the team at UNK who's looking at, AI policies and those kinds of things. They did talk about that Nebraska schools seem to be slow in adopting AI policy. And so it's, and I think really it's just a lot of it, at least for me, as it's still really new. I've had a couple of conversations with Brandon about some things I've been learning. I also learned recently that there's law enforcement agencies in Utah who use AI with their body cameras, and the AI generates their initial reports. And so it's something that is really starting to just really be part of, I mean, it's been a part of our everyday lives for a while, but it's becoming more and more so. And that was one of the things they pointed out in my session, is that children that are being born now, their world is going to be just vastly different from the world that we currently know. And so then I was able to sit in a session on the Open Meetings Act. I had been asked to facilitate that session, so that was really interesting. There was one on SPED and 504 plans. When I reported to Dr. Rhodes, I told him one of my big takeaways from that is I just sat there just being thankful for all the things that we do in our district, and for all of the education that we provide to our administrators and our teachers, and so that they are hopefully more comfortable than some. They said that's one of the things that can cause teachers to leave the profession, is just that they don't understand how 504 plans work and their importance, and how they can actually help them in the classroom. And so it was really interesting to sit in on that session. That was one that was put on by one of the attorneys from the Perry Law firm. Then there was also one that I went to for UNL with educator prep. I had no idea that they had a principal academy kind of thing for people in the western part of the state. So that was really interesting. And UNL is doing a lot to try to help produce educators. So I think that's really good. And then I went to 2 sessions on, one was advisory groups that Papillion La Vista has, and the other one was what LPS is doing. They have a Citizens Academy. And so it was just different ways that they're engaging with their communities, different groups in their communities, and just really trying to build relationships with stakeholders outside of the district. So there were a lot of really good things in that. And then just before I get to this last part that I have, I just wanted to mention, did you go to State One Act? Okay, just Mr. McCoy. Okay, I just wanted to commend the high school for, I think one of the things that I've been hearing lately is, especially with Mr. McCoy, how it's not just all about athletics, that he's really paying attention to the activities side of things too. And I think it was really great for him to be able to travel with those students and that team, and to show his support. I think it meant a lot to them and to me. And then also, I think it's really great I've noticed, I guess today primarily, all of the Facebook notifications. I don't know if it's the high school putting it out or Brandon, but all of our educators who are continuing to get education and how we're celebrating that. So I thank you guys for giving those people recognition. And also when I was in the high school, it's really cool that you guys are putting up the Student of the Week posters like down in the cafeteria area and the recognition that's being given to those students. I see that a lot, like the freshman pods are having students of the week and then so a lot of good things going on there. So thank you. It's just really cool to see all of that. So, okay, with that, I wanted to share our opening session speaker was someone that I just really connected with for some reason. And so I have a 3-minute video that hopefully Sheila's gonna be able to
Like
play
a
for
Jefferson
us.
student, we had a problem, we brainstormed a resolution, and now we're hoping it's gonna go.
Okay.
All in. All in. All in. All in. All in.
To understand how 2 words
All in.
turned a New York Giants season going nowhere into a trip to the Super Bowl, you got to go back to the night before Christmas Eve. The Giants were 7-7, and they'd lost 5 of their last 6.
I think there's some empty graves out there that people were digging for the Giants.
There was definitely something missing.
That night at a players' chapel meeting,
We had a young guy come in and speak.
He delivered one of the most timely messages that I've had, not only in my football career, but in my life.
his name is John Paul Gonzalez, a 9th grade teacher and speaker in nearby Union City, New Jersey. He's friends with the Giants team chaplain who asked him to speak to the team. Were you nervous?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Definitely. I mean, you go in a room and you see like Eli Manning in the front row, and then you see Justin Tuck, and you see these guys, and you're like, wow.
Gonzalez turned out not to be just a teacher of kids. He turned out to be a teacher of giants.
He kind of put everything into 2 words, all in.
He gave everyone poker chips, had everyone put their initials on the poker chip, and advised us to keep it with us. When you have something that you feel can't be beat, you know, what do? You throw it all in.
The next day, the Giants whipped the Jets 29-14.
Hand off Bradshaw. He's going to run right through a tackle. Touchdown Giants.
Afterwards,
We was all in today. Went to chapel last night and our speaker talked about all in. And today, you know, you could just tell the Giants was all in.
and before you knew it, All In had worked its way all around the Giants locker room.
It's just something that became, you know, infectious, wanting to give more effort, wanting to stay behind and watch more film.
Ever since then, everybody, all 53 guys, 46 on game day, they're all in.
The next week, they beat the Cowboys, punching their playoff ticket.
The New York Giants are the NFC East champions.
Then the chaplain again sent me a message and said, you wouldn't believe this, but they made towels for the game.
It's not about individual, it's just everybody being 100% dedicated to the team.
Then they dismissed the Falcons at home in the first round of the playoffs, and a week later, they went into no less than Lambeau Field and shocked the 15-1 Packers.
The New York Giants have eliminated the #1 seed Green Bay Packers.
They're all in. The chip is the chip, but you know, it's our minds, you know, that are powerful. What's going to give you that extra edge? What's going to give you that extra push?
And that's new since you dedicated yourself to All In.
You know, I don't think I was giving it 100%. I might have been giving it 90%. But now I think, you know, for the last 5 weeks, I've been definitely giving it 100%.
The 49ers in San Francisco, the NFC title game, jackpot.
The Giants in overtime have won the NFC Championship.
All the way down, you know, to the custodians, to the cooks that we have here within the facility. And when I say all in, I really mean they're all in.
You came up with it. Doesn't that feel great?
It does, but I know it's a lot of tribute to their hard work.
If you win this Super Bowl, what will you do with the chip?
I'll probably frame that chip, you know, in all honesty, and make sure I keep it by me, you know, at all times. I'll probably keep it next to my Super Bowl ring.
Do you think you'll get a ring?
I wouldn't turn one down.
He actually talks about pushing all of the chips to the center of the table. And then he says, so when everyone shows you their cards, well, what if you're like, oh, no, sorry, I didn't mean that, you know, and you start to take it back. And so he just talks about commitment, and he says, if you would never do that in a game of poker, then why do we do it with our lives? He says, when the unexpected happens, why do we back away and say that it's not for me? And so then, you know, as he talked about giving them these poker chips, and he told them to sign it and put it someplace where they could see it daily. And he talks about how some of them even put it like in the center of their kitchen table at home because they wanted to work on their commitment to their family, you know, along with some of the other things. And so it was really good. And he says that you need to ask yourself, am I really giving my best, or am I only going halfway? And so I really appreciated his message. And then he did this other thing. So I ordered one of these. And so I wasn't sure how many people it would work with, but in here it says that there was a school in Woodland, Texas that connected 1,113 kids. So in his thing, he only did 3. So what I'm gonna ask you to do is stand up. Can you come up too for a second? I need you to fill a gap. Okay, so, and you guys are gonna have to maybe stretch a little bit. So we're gonna hold hands just for a second. Okay, and then Dr. Rhodes is gonna hold that. So, but if someone lets go, then it stops. Oh. And so this is all about teamwork. Yep.
Sure.
So anyway, it was just a really neat little demonstration that he did, and, you know, talked about that it's not just about me, but it's about all of us. And I was thinking about that and thinking about like Matt and Stuart will be leaving us soon. You guys are still a part of it, even though you're not at the table, you're still, you know, because it's about all of us, about parents, about community members, about everybody, you know, about us being committed to the things that we're doing for North Platte Public Schools. And I just want to tell you guys how much I appreciate in the time that I've been on the school board. I just really have seen the commitment and dedication that everybody, teachers, custodians, I know that I've had conversations with custodians where they're telling me some of the life lessons that they're teaching kids, you know. And so there's a lot that goes into running this school district, and I appreciate everybody giving their best every day. So anyway. All right, so one last thing that I wanted to cover with board engagement. When the leadership team met with Dr. Rhodes, we had talked a little bit about, we've had some questions about the board members being able to travel to conferences when some of the teachers and staff have been a little bit limited in being able to do that. And one of the things that we just wanted to express is kind of what I said earlier. This is like, we come into this job with just whatever we come into it with. Skip and Emily and Cindy were fortunate to come in with a little bit of knowledge about the district because they've taught and worked for the district. And so it's all about us being able to put tools in our tool belt to help us be better board members. And I know that a lot of the teachers could probably argue that too, but not that it's an excuse, but teachers do have other types of professional development, and those opportunities are not available to us in any other way. And so it is really important. We are going to be talking about being very intentional with the trainings that we go to, and so that, you know, it's not just about going and being away from our families, but we want to be able to bring things back that are beneficial to the school district and that will will help everybody to, hopefully be better. So do you have anything to add to that or?
No, I think we just talked about, kind of looking at the next year and what's offered and maybe kind of identifying as a board who it would make sense to send where and who has a particular interest and passion in what, and just kind of being strategic about bringing as much information back as we can, but also being as fiscally responsible as we can with that too. So, and I do know, I mean, I know that there have been board members along the way that have attended trainings and paid travel and all of those things out of their own pockets as well, or chosen to drive back instead of getting hotel rooms. So I do want to express that, like, that is definitely something that we keep at the forefront of our minds.
Cindy, anything to add?
I just think that because we're asking everyone else to watch the dollars, even though we would all like to go to something, we have to be fiscally responsible for the taxpayers too. So.
And Skip, as he's been part of the legislative committee, there's been a lot of his costs that have been covered by school board association. So that's been really helpful for us as well. So, okay. We'll move on to public comment. Public questions and comments may take place at this time in the agenda. Individuals who want to address the board must complete a guidelines for public comments form with the date, topic addressing, name, address, and name of any organization you represent, and give it to the board clerk prior to the meeting.
I have none.
Okay, so I will now turn the agenda over to Dr. Rhodes.
Okay, so our first agenda item is our early graduation report for the 24-25 school year. Policy 5066 is our early graduation policy. And part of that policy is that we report to the board at the December board meeting or committee of the whole, really the numbers that we're looking at for potential early graduates. So Mr. Spatansky is here tonight, and I thank him for being here. He's going to talk a little bit about the application process. It's something that his team has worked on, probably for the last 18 months or so to kind of get that application the way they want it, and then a little bit about our potential early grad numbers for the school year. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Spatansky.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to come and talk a little bit about our early grads and the application process that's taking place at North Platte High School. So what we've done over the last, as Dr. Rose said, a year and a half or so, is we've put together a 4-page document. It's combined a lot of information together from other docs that were out there. So we started communicating out about this in September of this year. I think that there was an official communication that went out on September 23rd that was shared out via Skillshare. And we had deadlines then that were associated with it accordingly. So this pretty much just has, some information on the front about, whether they're selecting to participate in the commencement activity or whether or not they are not. Also, we added this year a piece to a term 2 and a term 3 piece. Last year, we had some incidents where, end of the winter season, we had some students that just were done with the sport and they said, don't want to come back, but we didn't start that process until we really vetted that out with our team and made sure that that's something that we would move forward with. And that does follow our 5066 guideline. So we asked questions about, what their plans are next, a 4-year college or university, community college, military employment, or other. They get a chance then on the other side to go ahead and kind of outline 4 key questions. So plans for life after high school, necessary skills that they've obtained to be successful with those plans, resources, folks that they have in their life to assist in meeting those goals after high school, and an explanation of why this would be potentially allowing them to be more successful by participating in this. Our counselors added into it some other pieces that talk about college and career readiness. So we then go through and identify places where those kids are excelling or not. They have a GPA portion, potentially their ACT score, and then it has to be signed off by pretty much everyone that's associated with that child in the building, from counselors, administrators, parent signatures as well. So that process took place, like I said, in September of this year and the month of October. We did have 48 seniors that applied for December graduation, and 12 seniors applied for that March opportunity. So those are the numbers for this year. Just as another add-on, our alternative education program has already had 16 students that have finished through that process up to this point this year. And just wanted to also talk a little about the Edgenuity process. We've had 416 classes that have been completed, 223 of those within our alt-ed program, 75 with credit recovery, 63 with our fifth block after school program, and then a few through ISS, OSS, and 40 for students that are doing their work off campus for a variety of reasons. So that's entertaining questions that you have.
Yeah, questions for Mr. Stefanski?
So all the numbers you gave us will be the ones that will be graduating like tomorrow for the 48.
Yes, we had 48 students that applied for that portion. There's a couple of them that might
Okay,
not make
that was
that.
my question.
Yep, so.
Not all of them
Yep.
made it.
No, not, so we'll have a couple of them that will have to take on some other opportunities.
Okay.
But, 12 of them that have applied for that March.
And then again, you won't
process.
know that until March.
That's right.
Okay,
Yep.
that's what I wanted to do. Thank you.
What's the main reason you see for students wanting to graduate early?
A lot of times it's they're helping to supply their family with money or save up for their college experience. And so those are the most common pieces. And I do exit interviews with every one of the students this year. I just finished my last one up yesterday, as a matter of fact, but we want to get face to face with every kid and ask and make sure that they have a good idea of what, resources we still can provide for them. It's scary. It's scary to wrap things up when some of their peers are wrapping it up 6 months from now, right? So, we just make sure that we talk about our communication process. We're gonna have 4 senior meetings that come up in February, March, April, and May, and that will really help them through a lot of that planning as well that readies them for graduation. But we just spent a lot of time working with them on that. It seems like I'm getting a lot more positive answers from them this year because of the planning that's been taking place with them, with our counseling team. So, the FAFSA piece, we're really putting that layer in as well and ensuring that kids are either filling that out if they're going to a post-secondary opportunity or opting out of that particular time as well. So.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Stefanski. Okay, Americanism report. If you remember, boy, this is probably 7th or 8th year on American civics. That came from state statute 79-724. Part of the compliance and duties with this particular statute is we talk about this twice a year. One of those has to be held in a public hearing. We choose to do that public hearing in June. So annually, we have 2 different times we talk about American civics. And the reason we do that is just to communicate with you as the board that you have fulfilled your obligations and we have as a district to make sure we're in compliance with that particular statute. I would just remind you, once we went with the committee of the whole structure, it's almost, you've kind of became the American Civics Committee, even though the statute says that we have 3 of you that sits on it. We used to run that through our Personnel and Curriculum Subcommittee. But once we established the Committee of the Whole, we still always have our board president go ahead and elect those 3 people that are on paper the Committee on American Civics. But since we do it at the Committee of the Whole, she really are. So with that,
I can't find the document, but you guys have it attached, right?
yeah, it is
Okay.
attached.
It is.
I was just gonna put it up on the screen for you, so I won't do that.
Yeah, no, we have it attached to the board doc. So yeah, with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Price.
All right, so as Dr. Rhodes indicated, this evening, I'm just gonna share a brief summary of the document that is attached. It is the document that shares with you the Northwest Public Schools compliance regarding the Nebraska Revised Statute 79-724 for the Committee on American Civics. Our district's compliance document is located there. The items that you see in red on the document are the things that our district meets, those statutory requirements. So these are just the reminders for this committee. In particular, the school board of each school district shall at the beginning of each calendar year appoint from its members a committee of 3 to be known as the Committee on American Civics. Our Board of Education members are Mr. Skipaltig, Miss Angela Blasey and Mrs. Cindy O'Connor. So thank you to the three of you for serving as our Committee of American Civics. The committee's responsibility is to ensure that our district is meeting compliance of this statute by holding no fewer than 2 public meetings annually, with at least one when public testimony is accepted, which we do in June, keeping minutes also on those aforementioned public meetings, and ensuring that our K-12 social studies curriculum aligns to the Nebraska social studies standards adopted by the Nebraska State Board of Education on November 8th of 2019. So that attached document that you have provides for you the outline of the curricular compliances that the Teaching and Learning Department ensures that is occurring within our classrooms and that portion of the statute. So at this time, there are no additional changes or updates since our public hearing in June, and the compliance document contains those specific details for each of those curricular areas. I will make a note that the social studies standards revision for the state of Nebraska will begin in the spring of 2025. The state board will adopt those standards in the fall of 26, and then school districts will be required to implement new social studies standards in the fall of 27. So I would entertain any questions that you might have about the document, but it is the same information that we presented in June. Yeah.
Right, thank you. So a new report for tonight and for this school year is the financial literacy report. And we did tie in also computer science and technology. So again, I believe there are a series of statutes associated with each one of these. I believe financial literacy is 793001 through 79-3004, and computer literacy is 79-3301 to 79-3304, I believe is what the computer science is. Also, there is statute around graduation requirement, and the computer science was rolled into that statute as well as requiring us to have that for graduation status. So in terms of financial literacy, this is, as I said, this is the first year that we're to report that. We have to report that before December 31st of 2024. And so we have that report tonight. Computer science and technology actually does not need to statutorily be reported until December 1st of 2026. But we just thought we'd get accustomed to doing both of these together every December, so we're in compliance with both those, and both of them are certainly related. So with that, I will again turn it over to Mrs. Carlson.
Thank you, Dr. Rhodes. So I also believe that this presentation is attached hopefully to your documents as well. So I won't click through all of the links, nor will I read all of these slides word for word. You can do that when you have a few extra minutes. But I do want to outline this first slide, and that is, as Dr. Rhodes indicated, that this new revised statute does include the graduation requirements for financial literacy. It also includes that financial literacy instruction be embedded in grades K-8, and as well as that financial literacy report that Dr. Rhodes had described. I'm just going to highlight for you kind of where we embed the financial literacy in every one of our levels, K-5, middle school and high school. We utilize this resource for our K-5 financial literacy standards. It's actually a very progressive financial literacy standards that is used in our social studies curriculum. So they begin in kindergarten and go all the way through 5th grade. They begin learning about needs and wants, how you can earn money, supply and demand, spending, saving, budgeting, and then what all of that means for you as you move forward. So it's been a really good, robust curriculum for our elementary kiddos, and we're thankful that we have that resource. Financial literacy in the middle grades, then students are provided with that instruction during a couple of different opportunities for 2 different courses that our middle school students can take. Our 8th grade social studies, according to the state statute, the social studies standards, when they were revised in 2019, had to embed the financial literacy portion of the standards. So those did land in the 8th grade section of those standards. So Those standards are covered within our 8th grade social studies class, and then also in our family and consumer science classes, students are introduced to various components of personal finance through those terminologies and concepts that are related to those items that are listed there. Everything from money management to lifetime earnings, credit systems, identity theft, and some of those. Financial literacy at NPHS. So beginning with this the graduating cohort of 2024, at least 5 of the minimum graduation credit hours had to be in personal finance or financial literacy. I really appreciate the work that North Platte High School did around that, because that was meaning that we had to dedicate a staff member to ensure that we could get all of our students through, that graduation requirement. So we do have one course that is called Personal Finance to meet those statutory requirements. The description of that course is listed there. That is taught by Ms. Gwen Packard, and she does a really nice job. She's re-outlined and revised and made sure that all of the contents of that course are meeting the statutory requirements of the standards set forth in that statute. I did actually lean over Mrs. O'Connor and said, hey, we should talk to Mrs. Packard about the W-2, like, we had to pay stuff like that in. So we might have to go have a conversation about that. That was a really great idea. So thank you for sharing that. The pie chart here, one of the things that we need to do as a district is report the progress of that we have met that requirement. For the graduation cohort of 2024, 93.3% or 291 of our students met that requirement. There were 21 students that did not meet that requirement, which is always concerning. However, that is due to either they did not complete high school, they were in a life skills program that required alternate content for their program of study, or they were under homeschool status, so they may have only been enrolled for a portion of the time and didn't necessarily have that particular graduation requirement, because as we know, they can select courses that they wish to take when they enroll in our high school. So we feel pretty good about those numbers. We're already seeing what our numbers are for this year. I was going to share that pie chart for this year for you, but it would have been more alarming because we still have kids that have to take it in 3rd and 4th. So we didn't want you to think like we were slacking.
So I assume they take it anytime during the high school career, or not?
Personal
Not
finance.
like sophomores take this or that, or freshmen take this, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's available for the kids to take in a variety of years, so.
Okay.
It depends on when they join us too,
Yeah.
kids come in and out.
Yeah.
All right.
And they have to obviously pass it before they can
Yeah, it's a graduation requirement, so if they don't pass it, they have to take it again, or they may enter, like an Edgenuity course. We have a Nebraska, a version that in Edgenuity courseware that students could potentially take too, so. So that brings us to our Computer Science and Technology Education Act. I didn't write down whether or not Dr. Rhodes was correct on those numbers, so we'll just assume that he was. And so this is just a blush at our Computer Science and Technology Act. That also requires that we embed instruction in this area in grades K through 12. And so students are provided with computer science and technology integrated experiences within the instruction at the elementary level. Those are just some of the highlighted areas that they cover within elementary. They really start honing in on that digital citizenship component, responsible use of technology and researching using digital sources, and keyboarding is also where they're first introduced to those types of skills. And then they really start to develop that in 6th grade. We do provide at every level 6th grade computers, which is again focusing more on that keyboarding. And 7th grade, we have a course that all 7th graders take, Intro to Business Technology. That's where they really start talking about mastering keyboarding, cyberbullying, creating digital presentations. And then our 8th grade multimedia course really starts entering that digital citizenship as well, web design and some simple programming, and they also learn Canva. At the high school, this was probably the one area that many of us got a little bit concerned about. We were glad that when Nebraska Department of Ed came out with the guidance that they were providing multiple opportunities for us to decide how we were going to cover those standards, that we weren't necessarily required just to offer one course. And so through the use or through the work of the business department, I know Mr. Peterson was very involved in that, and the high school admin team, one of the things that we didn't want this course to do is to deplete our numbers in our career and technical education pathways, because we felt like if we had those intro level courses covering those standards, that would still give students an opportunity to go through and complete those 3 different pathways. So we actually cover this statute in 3 of our courses at North Platte High School. So we offer a digital media course that is an intro level course, an information technology applications 1 course, and then an information technology fundamentals course. And each one of those helps to secure a student's pathway in certain areas, you know, that they may choose to go on. We just didn't want to make sure, you know, we wanted to make sure that our career and tech ed pathway numbers weren't getting depleted because kids were just doing the one and done. We wanted them to be able to see that, yes, this is a graduation requirement, but you have multiple avenues that you can still pursue those pathways. And this one being very different than personal finance, we have a lot of kids that are interested in this. And we have a lot of very robust programming, you know, courses that we offer at the high school.
It is each one of those classes 5 credits? Does that, you just have to take one of those?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And so we are also working, a big shout out to the tech department, because for both of these requirements, we have to track obviously not only progress, but ensuring through our student information system that we can guarantee that students have actually completed through their graduation. Credit checks that we are doing due diligence to ensure that we're not missing anybody. And that's the end of that.
Questions about either one of those? Okay, the 2023-2024 NSCAS, if you remember at the regular board meeting, we kind of just generally talked about the AQuest classification ratings. We'll review that a little bit, but tonight is a little bit about maybe some of our designations and then the actual results. I would remind you that you could go back to the weekly update prior to Thanksgiving, and we gave you the narrative data that has all that information in it. You can also find it on the Nebraska Educational Profile website as well, the NEP website. So again, I'll turn that over to Mrs. Carlson again.
Thank you. Okay. So as Dr. Rhodes indicated, we did cover some of the AQuest information in our Board of Education meeting. These first couple of slides, and we can certainly share this out with you. I don't think this particular presentation is attached, so we can get that one out to you. But this basically outlines why we have to have an accountability system. It is basically the top one, state and federal mandated. And so we need to meet that through our accountability. These are the 2 laws that govern the AQuest accountability system. So the federal government sets the ESSA, and through that ESSA, then we, through the Nebraska legislature state statute, outlines the requirements for our state accountability system. We talked last time about the 3 different domains and all of the indicators that are listed under there. We work with our building level administrators to fully understand how each one of these areas help identify, you know, their success and how they come to get the classification and or designation that they receive. This particular chart just shows you federally what the ESSA indicator requires all states to have, and then our AQuest matrix below each one of those is what the state of Nebraska has decided to utilize to meet that federal mandate in terms of classification. So you can see that we are classified under and or designated under status, which is academic achievement, growth and non-proficiency, which is also the progress of student success, progress towards English language proficiency, graduation rates, chronic absenteeism, and then our science proficiency. It is also required by both of those governing laws that there is a designation metrics that is utilized. I talked about this last year also. There are different ways that school districts can actually get designated, and this deals more specifically with our subgroup data. And so subgroup data may be any demographic data that is underperforming to where the state would like to see their proficiency levels. Really, this ties very much into proficiency on assessment. So we shared kind of a general look, kind of a blush, and as Dr. Rhodes said, these are all public numbers. These are, you know, this is a celebration slide for Norfolk Public School District. I remember, Mrs. Garrick, you had mentioned, you know, I think we like don't have any funds, and we don't, yay. And so I think that's really just a celebration for our school district that we are trending in the right direction and that we're working hard and our buildings are working hard, you know, to stay in that two to four category. So we were really excited about our classification ratings this year. If we do have a school that has a designation in one of these areas, we are required by the Nebraska Department of Ed, pending the type of designation that we have to put together an improvement plan. And then we complete a comprehensive needs assessment. We do that also through the support of Nebraska Department of Ed. So we do have some schools that have designations. And so NDE will be coming out in January to visit with us and a team of our administrators who we're going to work with very closely in terms of completing their comprehensive needs assessment. And essentially what that does is that just provides our school buildings that have subgroup designations to really focus on those subgroups in those demographic areas to actually offer additional support. And last year, the state actually provided funding for us. And I know that Mrs. Johnson has talked about SPED strategies. So the professional development that 2 of our buildings are receiving right now is through the state funds for designation. And so we've been able to get funded support from Nebraska Department of Education to provide specific you know, targeted professional development for those particular subgroups. And so that has been well received. Kudos to our teachers and our building leaders who have been spending additional time on Wednesdays with that professional development and SPED strategies. And the exciting thing about that is we were also able to extend that professional development in those particular buildings to all of our paraprofessionals as well, which has been very well received. Yes. So that moves us to NSCAS state assessment. So keeping in mind that we are grades 3 through 8 go through NSCAS state accountability assessment every spring, and then our high school 3rd year cohort graduation takes the ACT. So just a little bit to remind you about what NSCAS growth, that's a computer adaptive assessment to provide students a chance to answer not only items of questions that are above and below grade level, but also demonstrate where they are summatively with the grade level standards that they're required to know and be able to do. Because it is adaptive, this next slide is really important because this basically explains when students are answering questions. If they are getting questions incorrect, then the questions become a little bit easier. If they are getting questions correct, the questions become a little bit more difficult. And so the final score or their scale score, their proficiency level is based on a psychometric that probably I'm not going to be able to explain to you, but just in the understanding that pending how many easy questions, medium questions, hard questions the student gets right or wrong basically leads the student to their proficiency level. So that just gives you a little bit more insight into how that looks. So this is our by grade level. So all 3rd graders in the Norfolk Public School District, all 4th, all 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, and where we ended in our proficiency levels. Math is in blue, English language arts is in red, and then only our 5th and 8th grade levels, if you recall, take the science assessment. That is still part of the requirement of our state accountability system. We do not test in all of the other grade levels. So this gives you sort of a blush or a glance. And again, these results can also be found on the Nebraska Education Profile. The next couple of slides then basically take each content area for you in grades 3 through 8 and shares with you the trend data of where North Platte Public Schools proficiency levels match up to the state of Nebraska. And so you can see that we have a couple of years where we were above the state average, a couple that we are below, but that we're trending sort of staying neck and neck in the area of math proficiency. So what we do with that then is, the district then sets, for our district site plan, we have set goals to, achieve and move our 57th% proficiency. So keep in mind, that's all of our 3rd and 8th grade students combined, not just by individual grade level. So the goal that we have set for ourselves, is to move from a 57% proficient to a 60%. We wanted to push ourselves 1% above where the state ended. So that is for math. Then for English language arts, this was our first year of second year of implementation, for our new English language arts, high quality instructional materials. So sometimes you do see a little bit of an implementation dip, but I am excited that our trend is that we are going up, with our overall ELA in grades 3 through 8. And so our district goal for this, is moving us from 52% to, again, pushing ourselves beyond that state proficiency level. And so we set our goal at 60%, hopefully getting all of our 3rd through 8th grade proficiency level up to 60%. And then the last one is our trend data for, our overall science grades. It says 3 through 8, but keep in mind, that's just the combination of our 5th and 8th graders. And so the goal that we set as a district is that we are hoping to move our 69%, again, 1% past where all of the state of Nebraska ended up. So going from 69% to 75%. And so we spent time putting together a SMART goal worksheet, identifying all the things that we are hoping to do between now and state accountability in the spring to helpfully move that measure. I think the other powerful component of sharing our proficiency levels is, as you know, Dr. Rhodes has asked building level administrators to put together site plans. And within their building level site plans, they are looking at the same data, only the data that pertains to their building and setting their assessment goals accordingly to help their building move up in proficiency and growth, which will hopefully positively impact and move us in that right direction. So that is our MSCAS growth. State ACT assessment then, keeping in mind that this is the 3rd year cohort students participate in the ACT. They participate in reading, English, math, science, and we also are required by the state of Nebraska to do writing. There are 3 levels of overall proficiency. So we have developing, on track, and ACT benchmark. I won't read that word for word. I think it's important for you to, when we do share this out, that you have an understanding of what each of those levels mean. The ACT was originally designed, as we know, as a college entrance exam. So it gives us a projection of where we believe students would be successful based on that score of entry level, collegiate level courses. So our overall proficiency in meeting the standards for this is calculated based on the number of students that score either in both the on-track and ACT benchmark. So they combine those 2 levels together to get our proficiency level. So I provided for you, first of all, the trend proficiency data, and that is really exciting to see for our school district. Moving from last year's, or the 23 cohort, 28% in English language arts up to 45%, from 27% in mathematics up to 37%, and then also pushing up in our science areas. This last slide then also shows you our trend composite data, and we were just having a discussion today about the state not releasing actually a full composite score. So that's something maybe that we'll look a little bit more into. But we also like to see the trends of our individual content areas and how those are scored. A huge celebration is seeing our English language arts trend the direction that it's trending. Again, this is our 2nd year of implementation of a new resource, and coming off of a 1st year of implementation with a brand new resource, that's a big celebration in terms of where students were at with writing, and then also our reading scores. So as you look at the trend data in terms of your individual composite and our overall composite, we are trending up in the right direction. And that's due to a lot of the hard work that not only the high school administration has put into place, but also our teachers and some of our test prep that we've allowed within our high school. So that's a lot of information.
That's good information.
Thanks, Cindy. Thanks. Yeah.
Questions?
So with the NSCAS data, okay, so at the district, you can see building, and I'm assuming everybody can just see how it breaks down to the students. So at the building level, they can see individual students. Do they have historical kind of trends with each of those students too, that they can look at to kind of see if, we'll just use my daughter as an example, Kaylee, you know, where she's been as she's kind of gone through, if she were an elementary student?
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's all embedded, like you can go back and look at that in the online reporting system. So, you know, a lot of times when teachers are meeting in their collaborative teams or they're talking about students, obviously this data is important, and keep in mind, we also do the NSCAS growth in the fall, the winter, and the spring. And so we are looking at the trends of how our students are performing, and teachers can do that all the way down to the student level with the students that they teach. So last week was NSCAS winter window for reading, and this week is NSCAS winter window for math. So once the state closes that winter window, which is January 24th, we'll even be able to see comparatively where were they at the beginning of the school year, and now where are they at mid-year. And so teacher teams will be able to go in and look at their individual student scores for that. So that's super helpful for them as well.
And then if there's a certain school with a grade that seems to be pretty successful, then you guys are able to utilize some of those, like teachers can get together and talk and say, okay, you're going gangbusters with this. What can we do how can we learn from it?
Great question. So at the elementary level, they have grade level team meetings. And so that is part of our whole movement with our professional learning communities. So collaborative teams will be able to spend that time meeting in grade level teams to talk about like, how are all of our, fourth grade students doing in the area of reading. That then trickles down to even so far as that curriculum writing team for fourth grade, let's say, and, do our unit guides and do our assessments, and is everything that we're doing curricularly matching up to where students are performing on our accountability tests. So yeah, it does give them that opportunity. And then in middle school, they are teamed, and so they're content area teams. So the 3 math teachers can get together and look at their individual math scores. Of course, they'll look at all of the scores, collaboratively as a whole entire building. But it is nice because those teacher teams, as soon as that window closes, they are already looking at their student rosters, because all of their data comes into them by period, by student. And so they are able to then, during their planning time, have conversations about how their students are doing. And oftentimes that then rolls into that whole MTSS process when students are really struggling. What are we doing to triage around them, either academically, behaviorally, socially? So yeah.
And then with SPED students, you're working with teachers as far as helping with those students in NSCAS goals, or students that are on a 504 or IEP or any of those kinds of things. You're working with those as well.
Yep. And at the special education level, we also look at proficient level, but also growth. So those are 2 of the things we also report to parents and guardians as well, because it's important that we have both of those numbers, especially if students are behind. We want to see if they are making growth, because if they're not, then we'll change our intervention or change the strategy we're using with students.
Mr. Spansky, what percentage of our, I don't know, in particular, but like, you can give me an idea, what percentage of our students are gonna go post-secondary or graduates?
Probably in the 55% range.
So how are we motivating the other 45% of students who are saying, I'm never gonna use this, why do I care? Is that, I mean, I think that's one of the main flaws in the testing system at the state level, but I think that's
that was probably, one of the things we were discussing at length last year is how to make sure that all kids were showing up on test day and taking that test seriously. So we put in some incentives. If they scored at a certain level, then there was a reward of maybe not having to attend Bulldog time for the remainder of the year beyond that. They scored a 25 or more, then not only would they get that other reward, but they'd also have the reward of not having to stay on campus for lunch. So they're starting to get some of those other pieces. So, we're just trying to incentivize a few of those pieces. I know this year we really dug deeper into the John Baylor test prep. And so that part I think is going to help other kids see that there are strategies, they have content knowledge. So we're building in some of those same incentives. If you make it through all the John Baylor test prep, then you'll get an incentive on that side as well. So we're just trying to make sure that it's incorporated into the core classes. That was another step we took this year. So the students taking a math class and they're going to get exposure to that test prep portion in that class. Science is doing it in science, reading and social studies, English and English. So we're just trying to take another step forward in how we're building that and exposing more kids to it.
Well, thank you guys. I know you've worked hard and obviously the data reflect that. So thanks to you and your staff for all the hard work.
Teachers are doing a great job.
Any other questions, comments? I guess my final thought around this is, I think we are becoming better as a district to have a focus as it relates to making sure that we're doing everything we can to provide successful opportunities for our kids academically and with other things as well. And so, from an accountability standpoint, for many years, goals were set at the district level for buildings. And I believe there's great value for your building folks that are day in, day out working to set those goals. So Mrs. Carlson shared with you our goals as a district, and we do have a SMART goal for each one of those that is pretty detailed on what we're going to do as a district. But there's great value to be a second grade teacher, to be looking at student data and determining where I think I can make that impact as a teacher. So that's a part of our building site plans that our buildings are developing. Part of that is then I am the owner of that goal. And I think when I'm the owner of it, I'm probably going to take that next step, the all-in mentality, to make sure I'm going to do everything I can for my students to be successful. And while we appreciate and we like the trend we're seeing with increased proficiencies each year, we're not where we want to be. And we're going to do everything we can to try and meet our goal. And we tried to set goals at the district level that were attainable, but yet rigorous as well. So it's all really interwoven with our overall annual calendar, with what we're doing on Wednesday afternoons, with the 4 questions that are asked with that PLC model, all interwoven into trying to create successful opportunities for our kids to be successful, whether it's a local assessment or whether it's the state assessment. So.
Is there anything that we're doing, trying to think of the right way to phrase this question, whether at the district level or at the state level to celebrate, whether it's those buildings, those teachers that we're seeing huge wins or increases or those kinds of things with scores? Not that I want test scores to be the way we measure our teachers, because I've been a teacher and I know that sometimes you have a hard group, or whatever it may be. I don't think that's the only way to measure what they're doing, but I do think it is one way. And I know, I have family that are educators in other states, and one of those family members this past summer, their state had something where she got a fairly substantial check in the mail because her group of students had tested exceptionally high. And so they recognized her and she received an award, and she was very excited about it. And so I didn't know if there were things that.
Well, I can't say as there's any type of financial incentive from the state level. I think we have celebrated with our building principals when we have looked at those ratings. And I know our principals have gone back and celebrated with teachers. We do have buildings that are occasionally nominated for both state and federal types of designations that are really, really positive. We're held to a level of confidence until those all kind of play out, so I can't talk a lot about that. But I think at the local level, our building administrators, I think, do a really good job of, you know, showering accolades in those situations as well. So I think it's always a little bit difficult as a building leader to do that in the right forum so that you're not necessarily hurting someone else's feelings but I think that's a good question. We're really pleased with some of our buildings and their ratings and the improvements they showed. But you know, at the end of the day, we had 4 buildings that improved, but we had 2 that went down 1 as well. And so, you know, my focus is on kind of the big picture. And so we'll just continue again to work as hard as we can in regards to, you know, opportunities for our kids.
Do you think it's helped with what we've been doing on Wednesday afternoons? The way that
I think it will. I will tell you, the buildings have done a tremendous job with the development of their building site plans. We do T&L check-ins with myself and the TL directors. And we talk about their site plans, the development of those site plans. But we're so new until we're just building the foundation for collaborative teams and learning communities. I think it's you know, you're a year away from probably seeing the how successful those are in terms of what our kids tell us through their data.
I think one of the things that I found, Mrs. Douglas and I met with our teaching and learning advisory group just last night. And what was really super powerful is, as we talked about the big rocks of things that we wanted to see have opportunities for growth last year with that group of teachers, that we made some movement and some changes in some things. And as we recapped some of those big rocks that they had identified last year, those big rocks are now actually, interestingly enough, tied to their building site plan goals. So when we were concerned about behavior, they're like, oh yeah, we have a behavior goal now as a building, and we as teachers in our building are working on our behavior goal, or we're working on this goal. And Mrs. Douglas and I were like, that's really incredible, because just that to me is the cusp of what the professional learning community's work is gearing us up for, is everybody is contributing and starting to own their data and look specifically at what their building has decided with everybody's voice in the room. And now they have these goals, which will then, you know, trickle down to we as those individual collaborative teams, what are we going to do to help our building move forward? Because remember, we have a goal as a building. And so that was really powerful last night. Every teacher that was there last night said something about their building goal and what they were working towards. So I thought that was, I think we're on the cusp. We're not, but maybe a year away yet. Yeah.
Okay, the 2023-2024 annual report. This is a Rule 10 requirement. Rule 10 is Nebraska Department of Education's accreditation rule. And school districts annually provide almost a report card of sorts to their Board of Education and to their constituents and stakeholders across their district. There are certain requirements that have to be in there. State data is one of those. That's the reason we always have to wait so long to actually prepare this and get it out to our stakeholders. Demographics, a little bit on staffing, and then financial information are required within the annual report. So we're really excited about presenting this tonight, I guess. Brandon, are you excited? I'm excited because it looks so much different than what we've done probably for the past 4 or 5 years.
I was going to say, I think it's really neat to look at.
Yeah. So with that, we'll turn it over to Mr. Peterson.
I actually thought Mrs. Carlson did such a good job on the others. I thought she couldn't go ahead. Like what Dr. Rose said, it's a little different look. Trends with these kind of reports are more infographic based and just more of design elements and a little more creativity with it. So it looks quite a bit different than what it has in the past, so hopefully it's something that you'll enjoy, and I'll just kind of quickly go through here and show you what's going to be in here. Wow, number one, what better group to make a great first impression with on page 1? We have a letter from our superintendent and introducing our school board. As we move on down to page 3, this is where we start to get a lot more of the information in here. So with all of this information, like, thanks to the whole cabinet for helping point me in the direction to find things, and it's a lot of data to go through, so it definitely wouldn't be done if it wasn't for all of them. But on this page, we have our enrollment by grade level and by year and by schools. We have our student demographics that are on there. We have special education and services on here, and then we also have some information for how on this page also. As we move over to page 3, we have the information that Mrs. Carlson went over, and like what Dr. Rhodes was saying, this information is what basically prevents this from being done by summertime, because we don't get this information until right before Thanksgiving. So we have state testing with the NSCAS and the ACT. We have our AQuest information on there. Also on this page, we have some information about our staff that we got from HR. We have student services information that you all got to see this summer when you helped with the canned food drive, or with the canned food given out behind the high school. And then also we have some information from our English learner program on here. And on page number 4, we have our instructional hours by grade level or by age group. We have information on our world famous kids club on here. And then we have our college and career readiness information. Also thanks to the high school guidance office and Mr. Spatansky for helping me find information for this in terms of numbers graduated in GPA, and students that are taking advantage of those dual credits is always a lot of fun to see on there also. And on page number 5, Mr. Simpson's favorite finance report is on there. We also have some information there from the foundation that they wanted people to know about. And I thought it would be a good way to end it with just some of the metrics from our communications and reminding the good people of North Platte where they can find us online.
Any questions or comments about the format?
I go back to what I said earlier. I'm sorry, Cindy. When I looked at this, when we got the agenda, I just thought everything jumped right out at you. And the numbers are easy to read, and it's enjoyable to read. It's not one of those things like Stuart will talk about, you put on your bed, read to go to sleep. It's not one of those. I commend you for the updates you made on this.
That looked great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, I think we have had a board question or two with rooms and that communication, but if you look at the percentages on that last page, on page 6, it is becoming a very reliable, useful tool for communication with parents and students. And there was a transition with that because it was something new that we were using, and we just didn't have a lot of the security and safety that we needed with a communication app with our parents and students. So it's really nice to see those percentages and how they've ticked up over the last year and a half or so. All right. Mr. Mills, staffing update.
Yes, sir. Well, kind of piggybacking that in order to have our successful students and programs, we need teachers. And happy to report, we don't have many resignations or retirements. We have 4 retirements this year and 5 individuals that have resigned, and we've hired so far 7 individuals, but they don't necessarily replace all of those other spots because we did some things with special ed and ELL, but some fantastic ones that we've brought aboard. And then we do have an interview set up for special education on Monday. We also had a couple ELA interviews, and also we've got a music band setting up right now. Got that set up. So, and also we put an offer to an ag teacher. We had an ag interview the other day, so we're waiting to hear back on that. So starting to come. It's that time of year during the holidays of a lot of jobs available. I think I looked at today, there was probably 26 music positions, over 22 ELA and 22 math. It's just, there's just a lot of jobs, but we're getting some quality candidates. And obviously what we're doing now is with the transition in HR. Carol obviously is retired, so Jordan's moved into her spot, so she's still on the curve of learning. So it's a great time to be in HR. Any questions?
I'm glad to hear about the hirings. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Are you done with career fairs or?
We'll kick it back off at the end of January. January and February, hit 4 more again. Yeah, they're all lined up, ready to go.
Very good.
Yep.
Right. Mr. Simpson, finance and budget.
So, you're ending with the best part of the district. So that, every year I try to at least lay the foundation for the budget as we move into it. So each month, because we work at a, $57 to $70 million budget, I try to lay a foundation of where we are so that we can start building those pieces. So it's not just one massive piece and we get a little bit confused. So we give you bits and pieces of data so you can always go back and take a look at it and then work your way up to when we do set the budget and adopt property taxes here next September. So the first piece that I wanted to bring out is just where our cash reserves have been and where we are trending. And so we do know 5 years ago, we were sitting at 22%. We went through the series of ESSER dollars. Hang on. And then from there, we're looking at from last year, ending last year, concluding ESSER's money to where we set the budget for 24-25. And at the end of the year, we said we want to try to at least put in 500,000 into cash reserves. So right now we're trending back up to hopefully around 17% will be in our cash reserves. And when we say cash reserves, we have to look at both the general fund depreciation and employee benefit, because the general fund provides funds for depreciation or set aside money for certain items within the district and the depreciation. And then employee benefit, as Kevin talked about, our early retirees. That's where we pay out our sick leave incentive or other specific items dealing with our section 125. So in that, we have to look at those 3 funds as far as the total overall cash reserve and the percentage. So this will just give you 1-page document so you can get an idea of where we're moving, where we want to be. Every week or every month, the cabinet talks about where we are as far as our location budgets or we can't say buildings because we talk about various other areas, as well as salaries, so that we can make sure we're on a trend of controlling costs and being able to put money back into the reserves. Questions?
So as a reminder, when you look at any of your cash reserves in those 3 areas, if you take general fund, for instance, that would be a combination of 2 numbers. That would be a combination of cash on hand at the end of a school fiscal year, and then the cash that is left at the county that has not been collected yet. So Mr. Simpson and I had a conversation yesterday. I think typically in Nebraska, my experience with taxes is you usually collect anywhere from 97 to 98% of those Nebraskans are notorious for paying their taxes. But we did have a year that was significantly lower from a percentage that we're still waiting on those tax collections. So you could go back 2-3 years on delinquent taxes, and we still see those trickle in on a monthly basis. It'll be on our statement. So, you know, if you just look at 24, 25, and Emily had a great question at the regular board meeting in terms of the line of credit and how we're trying to build up that cash reserve so we don't have to utilize that in future years. I don't think I could sit here and say that in the next year or two, you're not going to have a line of credit until we build that $500,000 is terrific, but we need to get that cash reserve built up to about 8 million, not the 4.6. So just to clarify that the line of credit might be around, we might be asking our Board of Education for that line of credit in the next few years. The goal would be is to continue to put more and more funds into that cash reserve so we don't have to worry about that before or worry about that again. But if you compare 2021 cash reserve to now, you'll see we have $2 million less in cash reserve. So we're real cognizant of that, trying to be very fiduciary in how we look at our finances to have as much left at the end of the fiscal year as we possibly can to build that cash reserve up. So, any other questions, comments?
Thank you. All right, so, motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Cindy O'Connor.
Aye.
Skip Ballton.
Aye.
Angela Lacy.
Aye.
Anthony Peterson.
Aye.
Emily Garrett. Ben McGee.